in the peaceful and quiet village of Okima, surrounded by tall baobab trees and hills that seemed to touch the clouds, there lived a young woman named Nyasha. She had no wealth, no jewelry, and no fancy clothes. Her house was small, made of clay and wood, with a leaking roof and a floor of red earth. But every morning, as the sun rose over the valley, something about Nyasha made people stop and stare. It was her smile, pure, gentle, and filled with light. It was the kind of smile that made even the coldest hearts feel warm. Nyasha's life was not easy. Her parents had passed when she was just a child. She grew up with no one but herself to depend on. She fetched water from the stream, sold firewood in the market, and helped elders in the village without ever asking for anything in return. She worked hard every day just to eat one meal. Yet, no matter how tired or hungry she was, Nyasha never let her smile fade. Even when her hands were blistered from carrying heavy wood, even when people laughed at her old clothes, she smiled. People in Okima noticed her smile, but most didn't understand it. Some thought she was foolish. How could a girl with nothing smile so freely? Others were annoyed by her happiness, as if her peace reminded them of their own emptiness. But children loved her. They would run to her every morning, eager to see that soft, shining smile and hear her quiet laugh. The elders, too, would shake their heads and whisper, "That girl has the heart of a river, calm and deep." One day, as she walked through the market with her basket of firewood, a powerful man from the village caught sight of her. His name was Tumaru, and he was known for his pride and temper. Nyasha looked up and smiled at him gently, not knowing that her simple act of kindness would awaken something dark inside him. In his world, people bowed their heads and looked away. They feared him. But Nyasha's smile, honest and fearless, felt like a challenge. To him, it was disrespect. To her, it was just a smile. And that was where everything began to change. That one smile, given without fear or pride, would set off a storm that no one saw coming. A storm that would bring pain, but also healing. A storm that would change not only Tumaru's life, but the life of the entire village of Okima. Nyasha didn't know it yet, but her smile held a power that would shake the strongest and soften the hardest. That quiet smile would become the beginning of a story no one would ever forget. Tumaru was feared in Okima. His voice alone could silence a crowd, and his eyes could make even the bravest man step back. He walked through the village like he owned every path, every tree, every soul. People whispered when he passed, never daring to look him in the eye. Born into wealth, raised by a father who ruled with an iron hand, Tumaru learned early that power meant control, and control meant fear. Love was weakness, kindness was foolish, and a smile? To him, a smile was a weapon, especially when it came from someone like Nyasha. That day in the village square, Tumaru was inspecting a shipment of spices from the northern hills. His guards stood tall, clearing his path like he was a king. Villagers lowered their heads, hoping to avoid his sharp tongue or worse, his heavy cane. But Nyasha didn't bow. She was helping an old woman struggling to carry a bundle of firewood. Her arms were tired, her back aching. But when Tumaru passed by, she lifted her head and smiled. It wasn't a proud smile. It wasn't meant to challenge. It was the same soft, warm smile she gave everyone, like the sun peeking through clouds. But to Tumaru, it was an insult, a slap in the face. In his mind, a poor girl like Nyasha had no right to look at him, let alone smile at him. His pride boiled into rage. He stopped in his tracks, his fists clenched. "Who is she to smile at me like an equal?" he barked loud enough for all to hear. "Does she mock me with that smile? Does she forget who I am?" The market square fell silent. Even the birds in the trees seemed to pause. All eyes turned to Tumaru, then to Nyasha, who stood frozen, still holding the firewood, her smile fading into confusion. But Tumaru wasn't finished. He stormed toward her, his heavy boots thudding against the dusty ground. The old woman beside Nyasha backed away, trembling. Without warning, Tumaru raised his hand and struck Nyasha across the face. The sound echoed through the square. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A child began to cry, but Nyasha didn't scream. She didn't fall. She simply stood there, stunned, a tear rolling down her cheek. And then she smiled again. Not in defiance, not in arrogance, but in forgiveness, in peace. That smile shook Tumaru more than any blade could have. And though he turned and walked away, chest puffed and jaw tight, something inside him cracked. He didn't know it yet, but that moment, that smile, had planted a seed in his soul, a seed that would one day break through the stone and bloom. The sun had just started to rise, painting the skies of Okimba with soft orange light, when Nyasha made her way to the village well. Her feet were tired from the long walk, but her heart was light, as it always was. She greeted the early risers with her gentle smile and waited patiently in line to fetch water. Her hands gripped the old gourd she always used, the one with a crack on the side. She had no idea that danger waited just a few steps away. Tumaru stood at the edge of the well, his eyes dark and stormy. He had not slept. The memory of Nyasha's smile haunted him all night. It made no sense to him. A girl with nothing daring to smile at someone like him. The more he thought about it, the more it twisted inside him like a thorn, and now he was ready to make sure she never smiled at him again. As Nyasha bent to lower her gourd into the water, a shadow fell over her. Before she could react, Tumaru snatched the gourd from her hands and hurled it aside, water splashing everywhere. Then, without warning, his palm crashed across her face. The slap echoed through the silent morning air. "You think I'm a joke?" he barked, his voice filled with fury. Nyasha stumbled backward, falling into the dirt. Her cheek stung with pain, the skin already swelling. But she didn't cry out. She looked up at him, eyes soft and full of quiet strength. And then, even through the pain, she smiled. "I wasn't mocking you, sir," she said softly, her voice shaking but steady. "I was just being kind." That smile, that same smile, enraged him even more. He struck her again, harder this time. Dust rose around them as she fell once more, this time coughing, her lip bleeding. Still, her eyes held no hatred, only a strange, unbreakable calm. People had started to gather. Market women, old men, even children on their way to the stream. They all stopped and watched, but no one stepped forward. No one said a word. Fear kept their feet frozen, their mouths shut. Tumaru was powerful. Speaking against him was like signing your own punishment. So they watched her bleed, watched her fall, and watched her smile. But hidden in the shade of a nearby tree, someone else watched. Not with fear, but with purpose. A stranger with a hood over his head, a man unknown to Okimba. His eyes followed every blow, every tear, every smile. And as the crowd turned away and Tumaru walked off, chest heaving and pride untouched, the stranger stepped closer, silently, his mind already made up. For Nyasha's pain was not unseen, and her smile had reached the heart of someone ready to change everything. Far above the village, where the cliffs touched the sky and the wind whispered secrets only the mountains could hear, a lone figure stood still. His cloak danced around him like smoke, and his eyes, dark and deep like the storm, watched everything unfolding below. His name was Cabza, a traveler with no known land, no known family, and a past that even he couldn't fully remember. He had wandered from kingdom to kingdom, seeking answers to questions he didn't know how to ask. But now, something in Okimba had made him pause. He had watched the market square, the violence at the well, the silence of the people, but most of all, he had watched her, Nyasha, the girl who smiled through pain, the girl who bled and yet forgave with her eyes. Something in her soul called out to something buried deep within his own. He didn't know her, but he felt like he had known her forever. The wind circled him, as if waiting for him to speak, and he did, softly, almost like a prayer. Why does the girl still smile? The wind, gentle yet ancient, answered without words, but in feeling, like a memory pressing against the heart, because her soul remembers what her past forgot. Cabza closed his eyes. That answer made no sense. Yet it made perfect sense. There was a story written in the way Nyasha carried herself, a history written in kindness, in strength. That smile, it wasn't just something sweet, it was something sacred, and he knew then that it was not by accident that his path led him here. Okimba was not just another stop in his endless journey, it was the beginning of something. He knelt beside a rock, placing his hand on the earth. He could feel the hum of destiny rising beneath the soil, like roots waking up from a long sleep. His fingers brushed against the dry grass as his heart whispered, "This girl is the key." Cabza had come seeking peace. He had come to escape memories that chased him through his dreams. But now, he knew, he would not leave Okimba until he understood the meaning of that smile, because something told him that behind that smile was a secret, a truth bigger than pain, deeper than time. And as for Tumaru, Cabza's eyes narrowed. He had seen men like Tumaru before, men drunk on power, blind with pride, men who believed they were untouchable. But what Tumaru didn't know was that every act of cruelty weaves its own downfall. Every seed of pride, when watered with another's tears, grows into a curse. Cabza turned from the cliff, cloak swirling behind him, and began his slow walk down into the village. His steps were steady, his purpose was clear. The girl's smile had changed something in him, and soon it would change everything in Okimba. Nyasha sat quietly inside her hut, her face still tender from the bruises Tumaru left. She hadn't cried, not once, but there was a silence around her that felt heavier than pain. The once cheerful girl of Okimba now moved slower, quieter, like her spirit was trying to catch its breath. The village continued its routines outside, but no one knocked on her door. No one asked how she was. They had seen what happened and turned away. One evening, just as the orange glow of sunset kissed the hills, someone did knock, a gentle knock, soft but certain. When Nyasha opened the door, she found the tall, cloaked man from the cliffs standing before her. His eyes were calm, deep, like they held storms and secrets all at once. "You do not know me," he said, his voice steady. "But I knew your mother." Nyasha froze. Her hands trembled as she gripped the doorway. Her mother? That name hadn't been spoken in years. Her mother had vanished when she was just a child, taken one night by fierce warriors who crossed the great river. No one ever told her where or why. All she remembered was her mother's warm arms and her smile. "You're mistaken," Nyasha whispered. "My mother is gone." Cabza stepped inside. "She was not just your mother. She was the seer of Nyondo, keeper of visions, guardian of peace. And you are her only child." Nyasha sat down slowly, trying to understand. "But I'm no seer," she said. "I can't see the future. I live in a cracked hut. I fetch water. I bleed when beaten. What power could I possibly have?" Cabza crouched in front of her, looking her in the eyes. "Your smile," he said. "It's not just kindness. It's a gift. It's power born from your bloodline." Nyasha laughed softly, unsure if he was serious. "Power? From smiling? That sounds like a story for children." But Cabza's expression didn't change. "Your mother once smiled at a warlord, one whose army had burned villages, crushed kings." She smiled, not out of foolishness, but out of knowing. And that smile made him fall to his knees. He wept like a boy, laid down his weapon, walked away from battle, because a true smile, born from truth, from vision, it can reach where swords cannot. Nyasha's heart beat faster. The room felt different now, warmer, brighter. She didn't know what to believe, but something inside her, something old, stirred. "She told me," Cabza added gently, "that one day her daughter's smile would change the world." Nyasha looked down, unsure, 1,000 thoughts rushing through her mind. She still didn't believe it, not yet. But deep down, for the first time, a small flame of something new flickered in her chest. Maybe hope, maybe truth, maybe power. As Nyasha rested quietly in her small hut, nursing her wounds with herbs and silence, something strange began to stir in Tumaru's world. The powerful trader's son, once full of pride and arrogance, started to feel like the ground beneath him was shifting. At first, it was small things. His prized crops, healthy just the day before, withered overnight, turning yellow and brittle as if touched by fire. The strong leaves curled, and the soil beneath them smelled sour. Then came his father's illness. The old man, once full of commands and complaints, couldn't rise from bed. His voice faded to a whisper. The village healers tried every root and powder they knew, but nothing worked. Tumaru's house, which once echoed with laughter and servants rushing about, grew quiet, too quiet. But the worst torment was not the land or the sickness. It was the mirror. Every morning, Tumaru stood before the carved wood mirror in his chamber, adjusting his robe, expecting to see the proud face he'd known all his life. But instead, he saw her, Nyasha, her bruised cheek, the blood still dried on her lips. And that smile, so soft, so kind, so haunting, it stared back at him like a shadow he couldn't erase. At first, he thought it was his imagination. He scrubbed the mirror with ash and palm oil. He smashed one and replaced it with another. But every new mirror showed the same thing. Her smile, her pain, her strength. He screamed in rage. He cursed the air. He struck his walls and broke his vases. Then he went running to the oldest witch doctor in Okimba, offering bags of gold and precious spices. "Something haunts me," he said, his voice wild. "A girl's smile won't leave me. I see her, always." The witch doctor looked into his eyes and didn't blink. "It's not a spell," he said. No spirit did this to you. This is deeper. This is truth following you. What truth? Tumaru barked. Karma, the old man whispered. You touched an innocent soul with hatred, and now that soul lives in your shadow. But Tumaru didn't listen. He went to another healer, and another. He burned incense. He bathed in river mud. He even slept outside under the stars, hoping nature would cleanse him. Nothing worked. The curse clung to him like smoke, like guilt, like memory. He began to lose sleep. His skin broke out in rashes. His hands shook when he tried to eat. And still, that smile, always that smile, because it wasn't magic that haunted him. It was the echo of what he had done. And karma, unlike people, doesn't close its eyes. It waits, and it whispers, and it never forgets. That night, thunder rolled over the hills of Okimba like angry drums. Rain poured from the sky, as if the heavens themselves were trying to wash away something dark. In the middle of the village square, lit only by flickering torches, Tumaru stumbled in with wild eyes and soaked clothes. His voice cracked through the storm as he shouted, "Who cursed me? Who hexed my house? Come forward. Speak." Villagers gathered around, drawn by the noise, but none dared answer. They had seen what had happened to Nyasha. They had seen her bruises, and they had seen her smile through it all. Now they watched Tumaru unravel like thread from a torn cloth. The elders were called. With slow, quiet steps, Elder Mafuno arrived. He was the wind reader, a man whose ears were said to catch whispers from the spirits in the trees and rivers. He didn't rush. He didn't shout. He simply listened. He placed his wrinkled hands on the muddy ground. He turned his face to the sky and closed his eyes as the wind brushed through the baobab trees. Then, in a calm, deep voice, Elder Mafuno said, "The wind has spoken." Everyone leaned in. "The girl you raised your hand against, she is not just any girl. Her smile is her shield. Her kindness is her armor. You, Tumaru, have not been cursed by any spell. You have been struck down by your own shame." Gasps spread through the crowd like sparks in dry grass. People looked at Tumaru, then at each other. Some slowly stepped back, as if afraid the curse might jump from him to them. Others began whispering her name, Nyasha, in voices filled with wonder. "She is no ordinary girl," someone said from the shadows. "I heard she's the daughter of the seer," another whispered. "The one from Nyondo who could see through lies with a smile." Tumaru's heart pounded like a drum in his chest. His face turned pale. He stumbled back, confused, afraid. He had always believed power came from gold, from fear, from strength. But now, the entire village looked at him not with respect, but with pity. He had tried to crush a girl because of her smile, and now that same smile was changing everything. People no longer saw Nyasha as poor or weak. They began to speak of her with respect, with awe. Her name carried something sacred now. Tumaru realized, too late, that he hadn't just struck a girl that day. He had struck a legacy, a gift, and the wind would never let him forget. The sun was just rising over the hills of Okimba when Tumaru, broken and humbled, made his way to the small clay hut at the edge of the village. His fine clothes were torn, his face was tired, but more than anything, his spirit was heavy. Each step felt like walking with stones tied to his feet. And when he reached her doorstep, he didn't knock. He fell to his knees and bowed his head. Inside, Nyasha was sweeping the floor. She heard the soft sound of weeping and opened the door slowly. There he was, the man who had hurt her in front of the whole village. The same man who once shouted in anger, now sat quietly, head down, tears falling into the dust. "I was a fool," Tumaru said, his voice shaking. "I beat you for something pure. I beat you for a smile. But that smile is stronger than every blow I ever gave." Nyasha didn't speak right away. She looked at him with the same calm eyes that had made her so loved in the village. Eyes that carried the strength of her mother, the seer. She didn't flinch. She didn't turn away. "Why do you seek forgiveness?" she asked softly. Tumaru looked up, face wet with tears. "Because without it, I will rot in my own soul." The air stood still. Even the birds in the trees were quiet. For a moment, all that could be heard was the wind brushing against the baobab leaves. Nyasha didn't answer him with words. She turned and walked back into her hut. Tumaru lowered his head again, thinking she had refused him. His chest ached. His shame weighed even heavier. But a few moments later, he heard footsteps. Nyasha came back. In her hands, she held a small wooden bowl filled with clean water. Without saying a word, she knelt in front of him, and she washed his hands, the same hands that had once hurt her. Her touch was gentle, her movements slow. She didn't scrub in anger or rush through it. She simply washed away the dust and the guilt. Then she looked at him, and she smiled. Not a smile of pity, not a smile of victory, but the same soft, kind smile that had once made the sun pause in the sky. Tumaru broke down. He couldn't hold back the flood inside him. He covered his face and wept like a child. That smile, the one he once mocked, the one he had tried to destroy, was now the only thing that brought him peace. And in that moment, he understood something no amount of wealth or power had ever taught him. Real strength isn't in fists or fear, it's in forgiveness. And Nyasha, the girl with the gentle smile, had more power than any man he had ever known. The seasons changed in Okima, and so did Tumaru. The proud, angry man who once walked with his chin high and heart closed, now walked barefoot through the village, not with shame, but with purpose. He no longer wore silk robes or gold chains. He dressed like the people he once looked down on. He gave away his land, his cattle, his riches. One by one, he traded his pride for something more valuable, peace. Each morning, he woke with the sun and helped build homes for the poor. He carried bricks. He fetched water. He knelt beside broken men and reminded them they were not alone. The villagers, who once feared his temper, now watched in quiet wonder. Was this truly the same man? Nyasha, too, had changed. But in her, it was a rising, not a falling. Her smile had grown stronger. Her voice had grown steadier. She walked with grace, not pride, and healed wounds that could not be seen. People from nearby villages began to visit, just to hear her speak or feel her calming presence. She used herbs and hands to mend the sick, but it was her words, so soft, so sure, that truly healed hearts. Together, Tumaru and Nyasha opened a small home by the riverside. They called it the House of Smiles. It wasn't grand, it wasn't rich, but it was full of love. Children with no parents found food there. Widows found rest. The lost found laughter. And slowly, pain turned to hope. Sadness turned to joy. People whispered Nyasha's name like a prayer. They called her the light that smiled through shadows. Even chiefs came to seek her wisdom. But no matter how far her name traveled, she remained the same. Humble, kind, and full of light. Tumaru walked beside her, not as a leader, not as a master, but as her protector. He no longer tried to speak for her or stand before her. Instead, he stood beside her, quietly guarding the peace she brought to others. His love for her was not loud or boastful. It was quiet, steady, and strong. He didn't love her because of her face or her fame. He loved her because she had forgiven him, because in her forgiveness, he had found a reason to become better, a reason to start again. And she loved him too, not for the man he was, but for the man he became. In Okima, where once there had been silence and fear, there was now music and laughter, and all because one girl had smiled through her pain, and one man had the courage to change. The past was not forgotten, but it had been transformed. Years passed, and the valley of Okima had changed. Where once fear and silence ruled, now laughter filled the air. And at the heart of that change stood Nyasha, no longer just the quiet girl with bruises and a kind face. She had become a beacon of hope, wisdom, and healing. People came from distant lands to see her, not for her beauty or riches, but for the peace she brought simply by being herself. Then came the day everyone had waited for. The village gathered in the great square beneath the baobab tree. Drums echoed through the hills. Children wore flowers in their hair. Elders stood proudly in their finest robes. And there, walking slowly between rows of cheering villagers, came Nyasha. She wore no gold, no jewels, only a robe of plain white cotton. Her feet were bare, her head held high. But it wasn't the robe or the crown they placed on her that made her shine. It was her smile. That same smile that had once bled and trembled through pain, now glowed with strength and peace. It was brighter than the morning sun. As she stood before the crowd to be crowned Elder Queen of the Valley, the voices of hundreds rose to sing her name. Nyasha, the girl who forgave, the woman who healed, the light in the dark. When the drums stopped and all became quiet, a child stepped forward and asked, "Mother Nyasha, what gives you such power?" She smiled, and her voice, though soft, carried through the whole valley. "A smile," she said, "can break chains. A smile can carry mountains. A smile, even one given through pain, can change a heart." The crowd listened with wide eyes and full hearts. Many wept, and somewhere at the very back of the gathering, half hidden by the trees, stood an old man. His back was bent, his beard long and grey, but his eyes still carried the fire of memory. It was Tumaru. He said nothing. He didn't come close. But he smiled, because he knew that same smile that had once haunted him, shamed him, brought him to his knees, had also saved him. It had shown him the path to change, to redemption, to peace. And though his body was old, his soul felt young again, because of one girl's kindness, because she had smiled, even when the world gave her every reason not to. In that moment, the village wasn't just celebrating a new queen. They were celebrating the power of compassion, the strength of forgiveness, and the simple truth that kindness, even when given to the undeserving, can spark a fire that lights the world. So, never underestimate a smile, because sometimes it's the first light in someone's darkest hour. If this story touched your heart, if Nyasha's smile reminded you that even the smallest act of kindness can change a life, then take a moment. Look around you. Maybe someone near you is hiding their pain behind a smile. Maybe your kind word, your forgiveness, your gentle gesture could be the very thing that saves them. Let Nyasha's journey remind us all. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers through grace, forgiveness, and love. And even the one who hurt you the most can be changed, not by revenge, but by compassion. If this story made you feel something, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe they've forgotten the power of kindness. Maybe they need to believe in second chances again. Please like this video to support these heart-touching stories. Share it so others can feel what you just felt. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful tales that inspire, heal, and awaken the soul. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching. Stay kind, stay hopeful, and never stop believing in the power of a smile.